Good morning, Professor Nalapat. We are really happy to have you. Uh, you are particularly welcome because we've come off a major geopolitical event. It used to be the US presidential election, it is now the election of the chairman of the Chinese Communist Party. Xi Jinping has come out in the ascendant. What does it mean for internally for China, for Xi Jinping to be this great leader post Mao? And a follow on question, what does it mean for India, for our economy and for our security?
Well, even before the Boshilai incident, I was explicit that Xi Jinping would be would have control of the Chinese Communist Party. And I mean, you talked about Chairman Xi Jinping. My theory has been for the last 2 years that he is going to be the party chairman and the second chairman of the CCP after Mao. So
That's significant.
absolutely, there's no question about it. I believe he'll run his 2 terms, and then at the end of the second term, he'll become party chairman and then hand over the general secretaryship as well as the presidentship to someone else.
Right. And what does this mean for India? What does it mean to have Xi Jinping in the ascendance for our security and our economy?
Well, frankly, I'd like to say that we should not take anything as a given. Now, in our case, what happens is that we are taking China-Pakistan relations as a given and as something that is, in a sense, independent of ourselves.
Right.
That's not the case. Indian policy can affect the China-Pakistan relationship because I believe for quite some time that the Chinese policy to Pakistan is heavily driven by the PLA. And I believed for a very long time that military people are wonderful people where the military is concerned, but when they get involved in matters beyond the military, they frankly don't do the right policies. So the policy of China to Pakistan has a lot of problems for China itself in the long run. Now this can be, in a sense, more obvious to them, provided we give a nuanced policy to them, which shows the advantages of dealing with India. If we assume that the Chinese and the Pakistanis are going to be together against us, which unfortunately the assumption behind several of the policies, several of the statements that we've been hearing from India so far, we are basically shutting the door to a lot of advantages that we could have. Let's not forget, Xi Jinping, China, they represent a threat and an opportunity. We have to minimize the threat and maximize the opportunity rather than allow the threat to paralyze our effort to get the opportunity.
Which brings me to my next question. Xi Jinping and the PLA. You said the PLA has made the Pakistan policy. What is the relationship between the army and Xi Jinping? And how is that going to play itself out in the future and with India?
Well, I'd like to point out that I see Xi Jinping, frankly, as the successor to Mao Zedong. In a sense,
You and he. Both of you see it that way.
I see it that way. I'm not sure about him. But I would also like him to be a successor to Deng Xiaoping. In the sense, combine Mao with Deng.
Yes.
Because in my view, China is where it is today because of two leaders. One is Mao Zedong, who kind of unified China and who basically ensured that a stable system of governance in the sense of the Chinese people acknowledging the power of government came about. And Deng Xiaoping, who allowed the normal instincts of the Chinese people, the trade, the commercial instincts, to operate. So you need to be partly Chairman Mao and partly Deng Xiaoping. So I would like to hope that Xi Jinping will in that sense be a composite of these two and therefore evolve into something entirely, his own.
And again, with the PLA, what is his current relationship with the PLA?
Look, Mao frankly regarded the PLA as being his foot soldiers. I mean, he made Lin Biao, for example, operate as a foot soldier so far as the Cultural Revolution was concerned. Now, the Cultural Revolution destroyed the entire core of the leadership of the Chinese Communist Party, and that core was turning against Mao. They would have revolted against Mao. And after the fall of Khrushchev, Mao didn't want to be next in China. And if he had been next, China would be very different from what it is today. It may be more similar to, let's say, Ukraine or something. But the fact of the matter is that the Deng Xiaoping also, in a sense, was so powerful that he also was, in a sense, superior to the army. Jiang Zemin coddled the army. In fact, he gave them access to a lot of goodies, to a lot of luxuries, and frankly spoilt many of the higher ranks of the army, as he spoilt many of the higher ranks of the Communist Party. Hu Jintao was very respectful of the army. Xi Jinping is very clear. He has a mind of his own. He has a plan of his own. And like Mao Zedong, he says the army should follow his plan and his mind. So in my view, Xi Jinping very clearly is dominating the army. And in my view, again, that is one of the reasons why we had a peaceful resolution of Doklam. I'm very certain Xi Jinping did not want this to get to the level of conflict, because he is looking at India as an opportunity. You know, the army, the PLA is looking at India as a threat. Xi Jinping is looking at India as an opportunity. And finally, the opportunity vision won over the threat vision, and the Chinese did the sensible thing of having a peaceful resolution.
So, in short, Xi Jinping views his role as similar to the role of a leader in a democratic country with the army, whereas his predecessors viewed their role as being similar to the role of, say, Pakistani's military and civilian engagement.
Well, fortunately, the Chinese system has never gone to the depths of the Pakistan system, or there may be some PLA generals or ex-generals who would like that to happen. The reason why Xi Jinping is so powerful is that Xi Jinping has tapped into a very important facet of the Chinese personality, which is basically that they are the Middle Kingdom. And the Han people are, frankly, I wouldn't call the number one race because they don't like that.
Chosen.
But the chosen, I mean, I wouldn't call that again because I'm very pro-Jewish and I think there's only one chosen people. But if I may say so, the race that has primacy over the world. Xi Jinping believes that, he exemplifies that. He is the primacy Chinese. When he goes on the world stage, unlike Jiang, for example, if Jiang used to go to a reception, a diplomatic reception, he would spend all his time with the European and North American the delegates. He would not waste his time with the Africans, with the Asians, with the Latin Americans. But Xi Jinping will go to all of them because he sees China as, in a sense, the prime power.
Right.
So that has tapped into the Chinese people. Secondly, the rampant corruption that was there in the Chinese Communist Party and the rampant arrogance and abuse of power that was there in the Chinese Communist Party is now significantly different under Xi Jinping. The arrogance is tempered now because everybody knows if Uncle Xi comes after you, you're in trouble, you're in jail, you may be executed. This is also very popular. So this man is very popular among the people, and that has given him
levels.
Exactly, that has given him the power to challenge the party leadership and to challenge the military leadership in a way which only Mao had before him.
Right. So he has legitimacy and he has primacy.
Exactly.
Both. And what does it mean for China's global positioning? Because there's not just India, there's the world. There's the United States that looks at China as a rival, and China vice versa. There's Europe, there's the South China Sea, there's Asia. How do you think Xi is going to interpret his place now in the world?
See, I think, the fact is it all depends on the evolving policy of Xi Jinping. And in my view, we're going to see this evolution in the second 5 years of his term. I honestly believe, for example, if there were a second 5 years to Narasimha Rao, the country would have been enormously benefited. My view is the second 5 years of Xi Jinping, we can look to the first 5 years, but you're going to see a different matrix which has been developed in his mind over the previous 5 years. Now here the question is, will it be a Chinese way or will it be a NATO way of handling things? NATO way is to talk a lot about human rights and all that and basically bomb people into submission.
Right.
The NATO way, frankly, is to capture, is to destroy, is to shock and awe. The Chinese way is to win them over in a much more subtle way. So, unfortunately, in the South China Sea matter, unfortunately, the PLA attitude to India on Doklam, I mean, some of those very intemperate statements that they were making, all that is indicative of the fact that many people in China, frankly, have got are Chinese, but with American minds, or I would say with European minds. So they have European culture, American mindsets, and Chinese in physical appearance. And these are the kind of people who are very aggressive. The real Chinese way is not aggressive. It's what they say win-win. It's not zero sum. So, and it's not big W for China and small w for everybody else. It's a big W for both. So let's see if Xi Jinping becomes, I mean, in my view, he's completely Chinese. There's no American, there's no European in Xi Jinping. Deng was Chinese, Mao was Chinese, Hu Jintao, with all his faults, was Chinese. Jiang Zemin, poor chap, was a wannabe European. I mean, who not I mean, mentally he was not really happy about being fully Chinese. But the fact is that if this man goes into a Chinese way of handling the world, I think China will be benefited and the world will be benefited. On the other hand, if he adopts the American way and does again what America has done over the last 50 years, NATO has done over the last 50 years, we are going to see a complete mess.
And my last question, OBOR is Chairman Xi Jinping's pet project. This is his legacy. It is sitting uncomfortably to our west. How do you think that's going to play out with the CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, that is creating problems within Pakistan and also on our borders?
Manjeet, as I told you, we have a section of policymakers in India who say anything to do with China bad, 100% bad. Now, everything is black or white. Anything to do with China is black, and anything to do with those who encourage us to oppose China is white. So that, frankly, I don't have that mindset. For me, CPEC, one important point is that part of that road passing through Kashmir, the Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, has got to be renamed the CKEC, China-Kashmir Economic Corridor. Because if you call that also CPEC, you're legitimizing Pakistan's claim over Kashmir.
Right.
And that is opposed to Chinese policy.
It's opposed to Chinese policy?
Of course, Chinese policy is neutral between India and Pakistan. Some idiotic bureaucrat in Beijing, and may I say that I've been to Beijing, there are as many idiotic bureaucrats there as I've seen in Delhi, and some idiotic bureaucrat did not think about it and called the entire thing the CPEC. That has to be changed. If that change takes place, in my opinion, we need to have a way of accepting the CPEC and working in a sense of working with the CPEC and of course OBOR in general on two conditions. One, a renaming of the part that passes through Kashmir, Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, and two, giving us access through Pakistan to Afghanistan and Central Asia. The Pakistanis are being very unreasonable in denying access. If these two conditions are fulfilled, we should wholeheartedly support OBOR and, less wholeheartedly, but we should accept the CPEC.
And perhaps even link our own international north-south transport corridor to it?
Precisely. My point is very simple. One day I have an idea, for example, of a EC, a China-India Economic Corridor, passing through the red corridor of India. I think if you have a China-India economic corridor passing through the red corridor, that's going to change.
It won't be so red.
It won't be red at all. And secondly, you have this huge CPEC passing through Pakistan. Hundreds of thousands of Chinese are going to settle there. They're not going to give up their pork. They're not going to give up their alcohol. Their women are not going to dress in a burqa. I can assure you that's going to create quite a change in Pakistan.
Thank you, Monu. On this very optimistic note, thank you very much, and we will continue to seek your insights on China. You're an avid China watcher, and thank you very much.
Thank you.